Hello, everyone, and welcome to this live episode of In Lay Terms. I'm your host, Payman Askari, and today our guest is Artyom Ovsepyan. Did I get it right?
Close enough.
Well, what's the right way?
Artyom Ovsepyan.
Okay, that's a tough one.
I know.
Artyom Ovsepyan.
There you go.
That's the best I can do.
Perfect.
Not that mine is much easier to pronounce, but Artyom, thank you very much for coming on. Artyom is a fellow PPC candidate. So, how are you doing?
I'm fine. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. We were talking backstage about the BC elections. I thought we'd just pick up there rather than jumping right into your story, if you're okay with it.
Sure, by all means.
Yeah, so the BC elections, I can't prove that it was stolen. I don't know what's going on. All I know is that elections should not take more than one day.
Yeah, for sure. I'm with you on that. It's very suspicious when election count takes longer than a day. It shouldn't happen. It's pretty straightforward. Counting the number of ballots is not space engineering or whatever. They're able to do it with millions of people in the states. Why can't BC do it in different districts? It's just again, yeah, there's no actual proof of vote stealing or whatever, but it leaves an unpleasant scent, so to say.
You know what? A lot of people are waking up to this too. John Rustad really failed. Like he tried to be diplomatic in his response, and he said, "I have full faith in the election system. There's no evidence of fraud. I'm not saying this, that." But it's a little suspicious. And when people wanted him to come out and say, what the hell is going on? Like, why is this, like a fire breather? So he's lost a lot of supporters there.
Yeah, well, again, you need to have a spine to be in politics. If you're spineless and you're, oh yeah, I don't have any problems, you're not going to get ahead in life in general, right? If something is suspicious, come out and say it, right? If you don't want to get to that point, I would recommend promote that people go and observe. Like election observing is a thing, right? That's what you're supposed to do.
So these observers, what do they call them? Scrutineers. Does that even make sense now that they got these machines? Like, what are they observing? The lights?
At the bare minimum, observing that there is no surprise ballot drop in the middle of the night or something. Oh, this person came with 20 ballots when he was supposed to have only one.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, you could
yes, obviously machines are not necessarily the safest thing, and I think it should be paper ballots, if anything. But at least you get some points where it's more difficult. And even the machine hacking, so to say, leaves a trace. So
I was talking to my friend about this whole concept of why election day should be one day. It's just so that it's just the most secure way to do it. So if you have $1 million for your security infrastructure and it takes 10 days, you're stretching that across 10 days. You're only getting 100K a day.
Well, that and also more chances that somebody will not notice a slip of 20 ballots under the desk. So again, it's bad. It leaves a bad taste in people's mouths. They don't trust election as much. There's been a lot of people say, "Oh, election don't matter. They're going to select somebody who they want rather than us getting to participate in an actual election." So you're undermining what you consider a democracy, if you will, by doing that.
I think they, again, I don't know who's cheating in Canada, but I'm looking at the US and the Democrats. They had 17 million Democrats that just disappeared this election cycle. And yeah, I know. And like if you engage in that level of cheating, you might win one or two elections, but you're undermining people's faith in that election system. And either there will be a revolution or like what happened this time, people just get involved and they're like, no, this isn't happening.
Yeah, but see, the problem with leftist policies in general, they do whatever it takes to get to the power and then stay in power. They don't care about if you don't trust. Look at the Soviet Union, right? My family is from Soviet Union. Everyone knew election there is fake. There's only one party. You just vote for the same people over and over. Everyone knew it's just a ruse. People couldn't do anything about it. There's too much of a military apparatus breathing down your neck, so you just follow along. That's what they want to do here. That always, any election, any country, wherever leftists come to power, if they're not controlled by media, and media here is leftist by itself, they get away with it. It gets worse and worse. Never gets better.
All right, let's talk about that. Artyom, where are you from? Where were you born? Where were you raised?
Oh, tough. I was born in the Soviet Union. I lived there for 6 years, so it doesn't really count, I know. Uh, when I was 6, Soviet Union collapsed, and after that, I was in one of the Soviet republics, Kazakhstan, and we had the same president for 25 years almost, I believe. He was there were election every 4 years, and it became every 7 years, but it was the same person. So I don't know if you can count him as a president rather than a technical dictator, whatever. So I lived there. In 2011, I came to Canada to study. I came to British Columbia originally. I studied and got my work permit, then got married here, and now I'm a citizen. And yeah, moved to Calgary in 2021, late 2021, yeah, October.
I wanted to ask you a question. If you were going to compare Canada to the former Soviet Union, I know you were only 6, but I'm sure you've heard stories, and you lived in Kazakhstan. Like, what are some of the main differences? Is it literally that you can't own houses, or are there other things that are different?
Well, technically, you did own a house in Soviet Union. How do I put it? The sense of freedom, the sense of that you can get ahead is missing, right? In Soviet Union, you do whatever you can, and you know you're not going to get better in life. You're stuck to whatever. So let's say yes, some things were in a ways better, and that always makes me cry almost. Like medical system. Medical system was better, uh, especially late Soviet Union. Early, maybe not so much. Um, and I'll get into that separately in a few minutes. But let's say you're a teacher, you will get an apartment as a teacher, but you will not make enough money to own a house. You will not make enough money to go traveling. You couldn't travel outside the country to begin with. So maybe once in several years, you'll be able to go to, I don't know, a lake that's like a 1 hour flight away from you or something like that. Uh, Becoming rich, or the only people who would be rich are those who were close to the party's elite. So you're good friends with somebody high up in the party, then your life is decent. Otherwise, you're just okayish at best. At least that was for my family, right? My father worked hard, my mother worked hard, and oh boy, was tough. Kazakhstan, when Soviet Union fell, Kazakhstan started being independent, so to say, democratic. Again, if you weren't close enough to the ruling class, no chances at all to getting ahead. Like, again, doesn't matter how hard you work. If you have your own business, slight chance of getting ahead, but that came with problems of bribes. You had to bribe people, police, fire department, criminals, and it was getting out of hand. And what I'm seeing here is a lot of similarities starting here. With after Trudeau government came, the country that I tell people, the country that I was promised, so to say, Canada, the West in general, was, it's a free country. You work hard, you get ahead, you'll be rich. Just it depends on you, not on the party elites. You, what do you do? Your choices. And I came here with that promise, so to say, and instead what I'm getting is reverting to early Soviet days in a lot of ways, and it's pretty sad. And I want to quickly touch base on the medical system, which always annoys me. Here, you have this public medical system, which is very bad if you need to see a specialist, right? You can wait for God knows how long, depending on the specialist. In Kazakhstan, and again, this blows my mind every time I talk about it. It's a second world country. It's not a first world country in any way sense. But back there, we had two-tier medical system. We had a private one and a public one. The only difference between them, aside from paying, obviously, was the quality of equipment. The public one would have, older X-ray machines, whatever. The private one would have better equipment. But because it was separated, if you were in a rush or you wanted a better equipment, you go, you pay, and it wasn't like a lot. Again, even our salaries back there, right? And you get everything done within a day. I tell people when I had to go for my first job, I had to go through a medical examination. I took 1 day off and I went to this clinic which had all the equipment. So it's not like spread out across the city, it's in one place. And you go and you see any type of doctor you can imagine. Right, you get all equipment, so X-rays in the same place, ultrasound in the same place. Aside from MRI and CT scan, everything is literally in that clinic. Blood test is done. Within one day, you come out of there with having your, kidneys checked, your liver checked, your throat checked, everything. One day, and not even full day. Like you come there at 8 and you leave by 1 p.m. usually. And the results are given to you at the same time. Like you don't have to wait. Come like in a week to see a family doctor. No such thing. The doctors are there, and this is a part that always annoys me, and I bring it up whenever we talk about medical system in Canada, because what I've seen, a lot of people have this duality between Canada's medical system and US medical systems, and I tell people both are bad in their own ways. All right, in America you have to pay a lot, but you get stuff done quickly, and here you technically don't pay, you still pay with your taxes, and apparently actually there was a report that says we pay $9,054 per person per year for medical from the government, but you don't get stuff done. Getting a specialist, you can wait up to half a year, right? That's ridiculous. So yeah. Sorry,
Okay,
I've been going a little bit.
No. I have some follow-up questions. I apologize if I offend you. I'm not trying to be ignorant, but these are questions that I come across when people talk about how, the communism versus the West.
Yeah.
You mentioned once every year, you could go to the lake.
No, I mean, like, I guess don't worry about offending me. It's really tough to do that. I'm not a snowflake. I meant like for a working person in Soviet Union, your vacation would be once a year within Soviet Union, and usually very close by. You could go somewhere close by. That's what enough money you would have to spend. And depending on the time period of Soviet Union, you wouldn't be able to do that without a certain voucher, which you would get from your job. So if your job gives you a voucher, you can go to that place. If it doesn't give you the voucher, you have problems.
That was going to be my question. So you have to get permission from who? The state, your employer?
Employer, usually, if you wanted to go somewhere fancy. And I mean, you could go, you technically had a vacation, which was like, I don't know, a couple weeks maybe at most. You could go whatever you want, but would you have the money? Without the voucher, usually that's a no. Like if you have, what do you call it, out of town house somewhere in the middle of nowhere, yeah, you can go there and spend there those 2 weeks that you had. Sure. But like if you want to go to a resort without a voucher, that's non-existent, and you would only get it through an employer, and the employer would be government related in the Soviet Union. There's no such thing as private property, right? Technically speaking.
That's what I'm asking about, property rights. That voucher, do you present it to the airline or do you present it to the hotel?
Hotel. The airline, that's a ticket. Again, mind you, I didn't live in that time. I lived like at the fall of it, right? So I have very limited memory myself. I only talked to my parents, and well, they were working class and they didn't get to relax much. My mom traveled with her work once to a different Soviet republic, and that's pretty much it.
And the hotel, who owns the building? Who owns the business?
Government.
The government literally owns both of them.
Yeah, I mean, somebody within the party owns it. If you're not part of the party, you don't get to own stuff.
Okay, I see. It sounds a lot like the Middle East now.
Well, it sounds a lot like what we're having here. If you're not close to the Liberal Party, you don't get anything ahead. You're going to be checked. You're going to be, have police coming to you. You're going to have all sorts of problems. It's not as explicit as it was in Soviet Union, but creeping.
What about like a grocery store, government owned?
Oh God, yes. Grocery stores. If you Google pictures Soviet grocery stores, you'll see the problem with that. There's no variety, and half of the time it's empty. One of my memories, if you wanted milk, you had to wake up like 6 a.m, go to one place that would have the milk taken to it, wait in a huge line, and you only get like 5 liters of milk per person. And it was once a week.
Well, when you buy that milk, that milk is now your property, or
Well, I
just the
mean, 5
government
liters
doesn't
of
care.
milk, yes, it's yours for a whole week or something, yes.
Technically, I guess it's the government's, but they're not going to come confiscate your milk. Is that how it
No,
works?
no, you still had to pay for that milk, but I mean, you would only get it once a week.
What about money? Like money is property. Is the money that you had the property of the government as well?
Well, I mean, the money was similar to what you have here. You wouldn't just have a lot of it at any point of time, just because, most of that money was constantly needed to buy food or whatever. So, and the salaries weren't that big either. It's hard for me to tell you the exact amount nowadays, especially like, with inflation and the currency that doesn't exist anymore. So, yeah.
What about a bank? Like you guys had banks, right? Obviously.
Yes, but they were a little bit different. They were government owned again. Um, and interest was quite low, if anything. It was just a place to store your money so it doesn't get stolen, essentially.
So what a bank is supposed to be.
I mean, yeah. Also, I'll throw this one at you. The interest rate right now in Kazakhstan for your deposits is way higher than what we have here. I find it hilarious.
I noticed that in the Middle East. Is that because the inflation is way higher?
Well, inflation there is higher as well, but from what I understand, is risks. So because the risk is technically higher there, the bank offers better, incentives. Hey, we'll pay you back more, but the risk is higher too.
The risk is the bank might just take your money or close.
Yes, thankfully that in Kazakhstan specifically only happened once. There was one bank that actually went belly up. Supposedly government gives you some protections, but only in unlimited amounts. So I think when I was there in around 2009, the bank collapsed and the guarantee was about up to $3,000. So if you had any more on that, then sorry.
What about what's the Canadian banking system and the Soviet banking system? Like technically, you put your money in a Canadian bank, it's not yours anymore, and the government can freeze it.
Apparently, yes. So that was another problem that I had with what happened during the convoy thing, right? This is another thing that pushed me towards PPC, because I saw no protection coming from the supposed Conservative Party, which didn't even acknowledge the convoy, technically speaking, right? Didn't do anything to help it. Only Maxim went out of his way. Yeah, if you were doing something, you wouldn't get a bank account, and if you had something in a bank, bye-bye. Similar to supporters of the convoy. Hey, if you gave money after a certain date, your stuff is frozen. How's it different? Yeah, I mean, we're not technically totalitarian, technically. But a lot of things are similar, right? If you look at the history of early Soviet Union, specifically early Soviet Union, you'll see a lot of similarities, how the attacks on people are happening, how the government is manipulating the news, the whole attacks on family structure. This is a big one for me, right? It's similar. Soviet Union in early days, the whole concept was we're going to destroy the family and we're going to raise a new human being. The commune living, they called it. So the kids would be grown up in a commune instead of family.
I didn't know that. I thought that was just Mao's China.
Oh, no. Soviet Union, even to some degree, the time of early Weimar Republic in Germany, they had similar things as well.
Really? Weimar Republic between World War I and World War II?
Mm-hmm.
I see where you're going with this. This whole concept of, the kids belong to the state, the parents are
Mm-hmm.
baby factories.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because the left stands as pretend as they're defenders of women's rights, but in the end, that's not what's going to happen to them.
I agree with that. So over here, this whole feminism thing that's supposed to empower women, all it really does is it breaks up the family unit. Both parents go to work. Kid goes to the state-run daycare.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was a whole point, right? Originally, that's women's liberation. I'm fine with that, but the problem comes that now a single person's income is not enough to raise a family, right? Unless you're super lucky and you're making like, I don't know, 150K a year. Good luck being a single parent running everything and living in a house, especially in the interest rates nowadays and whatnot. So they're benefiting from it. Also, look, the whole culture, right? Back in Kazakhstan, it's traditional for families to stay together and raise kids. So I was raised a lot by my grandmother. She literally lived with us. Over here, that's a rare thing. So what happens to kids? They go to preschool or something like that, and taken away from family, and they can get introduced whatever values that preschool has. And if it's a government run, whatever the government wants. Like I said, building a new human being is always a thing for leftists.
I think Canada, ever since 1830s, 1870s, Egerton Ryerson, he passed a law, made education compulsory. So you can't even refuse to educate your kids. Currently, you can still homeschool them, but
I don't necessarily have problems with that in general. My problem is that the schools have become a place of indoctrination instead of education. Mind you, again, I was raised in Kazakhstan, right? I was going to school in Soviet, like first class, I think, when first grade. Sorry, the Kazakh terms are coming back to my mind. When Soviet Union fell, but most of my school, most of my teachers never bothered indoctrinating us. Yeah, we had like one teacher who was very sad about Soviet Union being gone, but it never was indoctrination per se. It was, hey, this is a math class. We're talking about math. I don't want to talk about anything else. We had like pictures of like mathematicians on the walls. Didn't have like Karl Marx there. Yeah, in history class we would have a poster of a Karl Marx or whatever, just because big person, so to say. But we never had indoctrination per se. My school, I was blessed with education.
This is after the Soviet Union fell.
Yes.
But what about before?
Depends on the time period. So from what mom told me, again, majority actually of schooling was done just that. So math is math, chemistry is chemistry, blah, blah. You would have a specific class that was on indoctrination. What was it called? I forgot the word for it. Like, essentially there were teachings like, oh, Karl Marx teaching is right because it's correct, and it's correct because it's right. I'm not joking. That was a statement that they said. But aside from certain classes, education was still mathematical. This is what my mom's education was. My dad's education was in school. So they had kind of two tiers. So one tier you would be engineer, and then you had a mandatory class that you had to attend, which would be indoctrination per se. But if you were smart enough, it wasn't too bad, because it wasn't all the time, and there were majority of it was communism is right, which didn't work very well. As you can see, the Soviet Union is gone at the end of the day. But on the other side, if you remember early, especially time when Soviet Union fell, a large amount of immigrants from Soviet Union to the States and Canada were who? Engineers, programmers. Even right now, like if you look, a lot of programmers are from former Soviet Union countries, because it was education.
What are the similarities you see? You mentioned the whole communal system. They're trying to reprogram children. What do you see the comparisons of that and this LGBTQ thing?
The whole trying to take away kids from family, forbid families to know what's happening to their kids, right? Oh, you can be whatever you want to be, but don't tell your parents. That's not right? The whole concept of transgenderism, how it's being pushed. Yeah, like on like a million kids, there's going to be one that's actually having this problem that legit. For a lot of them, it's a fad, and there's been studies that can prove my point easily. And quite a few kids going through a phase then understand that they're not. Like there was a good example. There was she's a woman now. She was like earlier in her teens. She was having this. She wanted to play with toys that are usually boys' toys, and she went to see a doctor with her family and said, "Oh, you're just a tomboy. It's fine." And now she is like happy she was growing up at that time, and instead of now, because it told her, "Oh, you're actually a boy. Maybe you need to have surgery." And that would have ended bad for her, because right now she's she's a mom. She's happy. She's a female, if you will. And it's horrible. I think what they're trying to do to kids is horrible. It's misinformation. It's pushing kids in certain ways, and there's cases and cases where a lot of kids that went through the surgery later on in life, like when they hit like 18, 20, when the hormones are, settling down a little bit, they start thinking, oh, what have I done? And there's no turning back. You can't. So you mutilated yourself. You pretty much sterilized yourself if you had the surgery done.
I'm trying to understand. With the Soviet Union, it's very top down. You had this book written by Karl Marx. It says that as long as the government takes over all private property, we're going to get utopia. It's called communism, and they're always marching towards that.
Yeah.
What is that North Star here in the West that the leftists are marching towards?
Well, they call it liberty, but liberty, which has nothing to do with liberalism, I should say, even. They call it progress. That's a North Star. Progress. What does it mean? Just not what we have now. It's not improving on things that we have. It's changing what we have to something that has been tested before and proven to be horrible. Like how many people did Stalin kill? How many people Mao killed? It's like Mao killed up to 200 million people. There's like from 50 to 200. I don't care which number you prefer. They're both horrible. Stalin killed anywhere from 20 to 40 million. This is outside of the World War II, just within the country. You had Pol Pot, how many people he killed. And he was educated liberal, by the way. He was educated in France. I don't know if you knew about that.
No, I didn't know.
Yeah. A lot of those leaders of the communist regimes were educated in France. And France or German schools, specifically.
When you look at the West, let's just focus on Canada or America. If you had like liberty on one side and you had Soviet Union communism on the other, like where is Canada right now?
Tough one. It's creeping close to Soviet Union. It's not there yet. And in funny ways, in some ways, Soviet Union was more adequate than what we have right now. But it's creeping that way. And that's my problem with it. And that's why I decided to go into politics in the first place. I see that, a lot of people are because they live here, they're being boiled slowly, like the frog. If you boil a frog slowly, it will not notice it. And people who lived here their whole lives, they don't notice that because they've been slowly propagandized that, hey, what's happening now is normal. No, a lot of things that's happening right now, it's not normal. It's not supposed to be like that. And it's easier, I think, for me to notice those things because I'm an outsider who, when growing up, had a different vision of Canada or states or the West in general as this beacon of freedom, beacon of opportunity. And like right now, there was what is it? Average salary in Canada is 50 or 60 grand. Is that enough to raise a family? Is it enough to own a house? Is it enough to even own an apartment, for crying out loud? And again, going back to Soviet Union and what was more adequate about it is, at least in some period after Stalin, when the whole fight for communism kind of was, easing up around Khrushchev's and Brezhnev's era, they focused on families. So this is why if you look right now, a lot of buildings that were built for families is there was a lot of building of apartment buildings, I should say, which was given to families. This is how my grandma got her apartment, because the focus shifted from fighting for a new human, raising them separately, whatever, instead to building families, because later, middle Soviet Union understood that families are important for a state, normal families, not commune families. And in that sense, that Soviet Union is more adequate than what we're having in Canada right now as their main policy. That is the unofficial policy, I should say. Officially, it's not stated anywhere, but you can notice things. What they promote, what they ban.
Going back to something you said a while ago, that the only people in the Soviet Union were the ones in the inner circle. How does that work in a country where you're not supposed to own property? What would happen if somebody all of a sudden owns $100 million worth of businesses?
If you're part of the party, as long as you don't criticize the party, okay. Look at China. They have quite a lot of businesses. Their model is exactly the same. They allow you to have business, small businesses aside, like big businesses, right? You can have a big business if you toe the line. Alibaba, do you know that platform, right? AliExpress, Alibaba. I forgot the name of the owner of it. He super rich, right? He's probably the richest person on the planet, at least was. Then he criticized the party slightly. He disappeared for a couple months. People thought he's dead. Then he came back, not a word where he's been, and now he's towing the line. He's not saying anything bad about the party. He's praising it. My guess, he was taking to a gulag to have a talk, and now he understands that he shouldn't be saying anything. Similar to the Soviet Union. As long as you're part of the party, I mean, I should specify higher up in the party. If you're just a party member, no, you can't have stuff. Technically, this apartment belongs to you that we gave you, but technically.
This might be a difficult question. If you don't have an answer, that's fine. Is there like an analog? Is there a comparison for that here in Canada, where if you're part of the inner party, you can move up?
Well, of course. Look at any of the scandals that Trudeau had, right? If it was Maxime that was part of it, you would hear about it every day, and he'd probably be in prison, like the LNC Lavalin scandal, anything like that. Too many to even present. If you're part of the Liberal Party, you can get away with anything. It's similar in the States with the Democratic Party. They can lie, they can do whatever. If it was somebody in the Trump's family that did what Hunter Biden's laptops showed was happening, you'd hear about it every day, and God, I don't want to think about it.
Okay, let's shift gears now, and I want to talk about why you decided to join the PPC.
The reason is I saw that the Conservative Party is either spineless or a part of the problem. I call it a uniparty. You've probably heard that term before in regards to like states specifically, but it's a similar thing, right? They are supposedly to be in opposition to liberals, but they don't. They toe the line. And things that are important to Canadians, they don't say anything. Convoy, did Poilievre come out and support it and said yes, the reasoning for convoy is good and we shouldn't be banning them? Quiet, nothing. Right. On immigration, Poilievre was quiet. There is an email that came out recently to members of the Conservative Party. Oh, is this a topic? What topics are important to you next election? Housing, crime, blah blah blah. Not a word of an immigration. I tell people when I talk to them, I say Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party is what liberals used to be like 5-10 years ago. So what's the difference? And I saw that the only party that has a different platform that actually speaks on the issues that are important is PPC. And I'm like, okay, I'll give it a try. And when I saw that they were looking for candidates, I'm like, I'll give it a try. And yeah. I just, how would I put it? I don't like spineless people. I think that spineless people are the root cause of a lot of problems because they're too afraid to stand up and say, no, enough is enough. We're not having this. You're not going to take my kid away because you don't like how he's saying things. You're not going to take away my house because you don't like my politics. No. You're not going to freeze my bank account because you don't like that I support freedom.
Welcome to Canada.
Yeah. Right.
What about immigration? Like, what is your current concern with the immigration policy the Liberals have?
Well, with being an immigrant myself, I see a lot of problems because, right, I came here trying to adopt to the culture here, right? I don't wear, I don't know, I didn't bring stuff from Kazakhstan here, much of it at least. Nothing negative, that's for sure. I tried to adopt here. I live here. Like I have a wife. She doesn't speak the language. We speak in English with her, right? And a lot of immigrants who were coming here, they're supposed to be, the ones with the country needs. You can't have an open border policy. Oh, we need 500,000 people a year. Okay, are we going to be vetting those people or not? Oh, come to surprise, we weren't vetting, and there's a bunch of ISIS members that came through. That was a report just a couple months ago. Why weren't they vetted? Oh, because we don't have a proper vetting system. Okay, maybe we should lower the number then. No, we can't. That's racist. Like, that makes no sense. It's not racist to not have people come to your place. I always tell people, take as an example your house. Do you let anyone come in, or only specific people who you want to come in, right? The answer is obvious. You don't have an open door. You close it and you lock it at night specifically. And with the numbers that came, first the housing is suffering, right? Because there's too many people and they're only coming to certain cities. They don't go like in the north and building their communities, right? Majority are coming where? Calgary, Vancouver, Toronto. That's pretty much the main places where people go because it's a bigger city, easier to find a job. Well, guess what? Now it's not easy to find a job. Guess what? The housing is going through the roof. Even in Calgary, for crying out loud. I don't even talk about Vancouver. Shish, I saw the average price of housing there. It made me cry. Medical system suffering because of that, because you have too many people coming and not enough resources are being put into medical systems, right? You don't have enough hospitals. Again, the family doctors we're lacking them because again, we're not inviting people who we need, we're inviting everyone. And I think that again, going back to the Conservative Party, they're not wanting to do anything about it. They're saying, oh, we'll lower it, but just a little bit. Okay, how's it going to help? And now, just what was it, 2 weeks ago, Trudeau came out and said, oh, we actually need to lower the immigration too. Wonder why? Is it because the crime is crazy? Because the housing is crazy? Illuminate. I thought that was a racist policy to want less people coming in. Apparently, Trudeau is a racist now, according to his own standards.
Yeah, I highly doubt the media is going to run with that.
Now, if we had a proper Conservative Party, they would run with that. They would be saying, oh, look at the Liberals, what they're doing. They're being hypocrites. Because they are, technically speaking, but yeah.
What's your suggestion for a good immigration policy?
Moratorium for a couple of years. Because we need to make sure that people who came already here need to be able to, settle in. We need to catch up on infrastructure, housing, medical, education, anything. And we need to have those people start accepting the Canadian values. Because we can have two diametrically opposite groups of people forced into one space and expect them to live happily ever after, right? On one hand, liberals are promoting, all the liberal values. On the other hand, they're bringing people who hate liberal values as their core. That's not going to work very well. So moratorium, give those people chance to, assimilate, help with make programs that help assimilate, whatever's needed, right? We need to make sure that people coming from Middle East understand that women here have the same rights. And some people don't understand that from Middle East, unfortunately, because that's part of their culture, right? A person from Afghanistan coming here, because, refugee, so to say. Some of those refugees are not even refugees. They're just coming here under the umbrella. Oh, I'm a refugee. Oh, do you have proofs? No. Okay. We're taking them instead. So somebody coming from Afghanistan, does he think that women have similar rights as men or not? What are the chances, right? And instead of taking them and saying, oh, multiculturalism, we need to accept him as he is. No, we need to say, hey, women have similar rights here. And if you try going out and tell women that they shouldn't be dressing up like what they're dressing just because it's part of your culture, maybe you shouldn't be here, or you should reevaluate your culture's values. And that's not happening. And this is why we're having more and more tension in the country. This is why there's more crime in the country. I've seen reports that like women say, oh, I'm not feeling safe going around the city in the evening because I get harassed. Wonder why? Sorry, I'm being sarcastic here.
No, that's okay. What's your view on the sort of conflict between the Khalistanis and the Hindus?
I think it's a conflict that should never happen. Again, part of it is because there was no assimilation. Some of those groups, Khalistanis especially, tend to live within their own communities, and they don't want to acknowledge that we have different groups of people in the country. And instead of saying, hey, Hindus can have their own thing, we're going to have our own thing. They're saying, oh, Hindus are bad, we're going to go and beat them with sticks. Like, that's not a normal society. That should never happen in a country like Canada. And all those people should be, arrested, questioned at the bare minimum. And if they hold, extremist views to the point where they can't live next to a Hindu, they probably shouldn't be in the country.
No, that's fair. What about the Trump recently won the U.S. elections? They're talking about mass deportations. Do you think they're going to be deported up north to Canada?
Oh, God, I hope not. The thing about deportation that at least Trump said, illegals. If you're in country illegally, you shouldn't be there. That's a normal statement. If you look at Bill Clinton's run when he was running back in the 90s, that's what he said. Bill Clinton was not a Republican or a conservative for that matter. That was a normal policy. And if somebody's in your house without you wanting them to be there, you have the rights to kick them out. Right? If I come to your house and you don't want me there, you'll call the police on me probably. How's it different from taking people who are not supposed to be in the country? I think that we need to have something similar in Canada. We need to figure out from those people who are here illegally to find out, hey, are you here illegally, but you have a really valid reason, right? You're running for your life, right? And there's no chance of you living securely in your country. Yeah, you can get a refugee status. But if you're here pretending to be a refugee, but in reality you're going back to your country every other year for a vacation, maybe you shouldn't be here in the first place. Because apparently that was the case. Where was it? Sweden. Yeah, and there was a Sweden report just came out a week ago that 74% of all refugees from Middle Eastern countries go there for yearly vacations. So you
Special type of refugee.
Yes, I mean, if I fled Kazakhstan and I'm going back there every year, maybe I didn't flee it, right? Maybe I just used the opportunity to pretend I am. And I really don't care. People will call me a racist for that. I don't care where you're from. If you're from Russia, you're doing this. If you're from Ukraine, you're doing this. If you're from England, you're doing this. You shouldn't be here. You can be any color, any ethnicity. I don't care. I care about, if you're a good person and if you're working hard and you did everything legally, I don't have a problem with you. But, PPC is racist. Whatever.
Yeah, get used to it. It's not going anywhere for a while.
Yeah.
Artyom, last topic I wanted to talk about is Canada's debt. I stopped counting. I think we're at $1.5 trillion of debt.
Thanks, Trudeau.
Yeah, it did really pick up after 2015.
Yeah.
How do we get out of this? Like, do we need to stop spending? Is that the only way?
Yes, unless we want to become more in debt to the bank system in general or other countries or whatever, the only way is to have what they're planning to do, at least planning to do in the States with the new administration, with Elon Musk becoming the head of the government efficiency bureau. We need something like this here. And Max was doing that actually when he was part of the conservative party, right? But they kicked him out for that. We need government efficiency programs. We need to cut expenses that are not needed. We don't need to, spend on some things. I don't have a list in front of me. Probably should at some point create that list. We should focus on Canadian issues first. Yes, helping other countries can be important, but if we're helping a country that's doing okay right now, maybe we don't need to help them right now. Again, I tell this to people. If your family is suffering, you will not be able to help anyone else. You need to focus on helping your family first, then you'll have enough resources to help others. Because if you don't help yourself first, you will not be able to help anyone else, right? Similar with the country. If we're suffering, if our debt is going through the roof, we will not be able to help anyone. So we need to focus on cutting expenses that are not needed, figuring out the programs that are toxic for the country in general, right? We have bureaucrats in the hundreds of thousands. Do we really need them? Probably not. Yeah. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I'm reading this comment.
I was hoping you wouldn't see it. Now I got to put it up. That's going to come back to haunt me.
It's fine. It's just too funny. I'm sorry. We're going to blame you. Say that to you anyway. You can be any ethnicity and nationality. If you're saying something vaguely conservative and vaguely, pro-country, you're going to be called a white supremacist. It's whatever. I take this as a positive feedback, because if a liberal call you that, that's a good thing. That
I
means,
know Gary. I know Gary. I think he was joking. I think he's saying that the liberals are probably going to call you a white supremacist and me a white supremacist.
of course they will, but they do that because they don't have arguments. They can't go against us on actual topics. They have no arguments, and they don't have points that are actually valid. So they resort to calling us names, trying to destroy us, trying to silence us. And that's why I say you need to have a spine in politics. Because if they call you a racist, what do a lot of conservatives do? No, I'm not a racist. You should say, I don't care. Call me whatever you want. Do you have anything against what I'm proposing? See, you don't. That's why you're calling me names. That's just a tactics to shut people up. Actually, funny enough, you know from whom it's coming? It's coming from Trotsky. Do you know that name by any chance?
Yeah, the guy with the weird mustache.
Yeah, and a goatee
Yeah.
small. Trotsky was number 2 in the communist Russia, Soviet Union, I should say, and he was fighting with Stalin for power later on, and got killed in Mexico by Stalin, with an axe to his head, actually. But he came up with terms like racist and whatnot as a means to silence people who were against his views, and communist views in general, I should say, right? So whenever leftists do that, remember, this is a communist tactics, literally. Not like, oh, you're just playing by, far right textbooks. No, that's an actual communist tactics to silence the opponents, because they know their opponents are going to be quiet about it. No, I'm not racist, and then it can derail. It doesn't matter what you say after that. The moment you apologize, you lose. The moment you say, no, I'm not racist, you lost. You should ignore them, what they say. You should completely ignore their existence and focus on what's important. They can call you whatever.
The conservatives, anybody that's even centrist, they make this mistake where they start a sentence off with, I'm not racist, but I'm not sexist, but like you've lost the argument.
Exactly. And the moment you apologize, they'll attack you even more, because they know that they can push your buttons on this. And don't even get back to that point. Somebody calls you white supremacist. Like, my policies stay the same. I'm doing this. Don't even refer to them saying that. I do like. I'll say this. I did like the interview that Pulliver had with when he was eating an apple. That was a proper way to do it. And some people who are going to be running for PPC should take a look at that interview and go with that, because that's how you shut those people up. They try to bring stuff and you ask them questions instead of apologizing. Marx does that as well a lot. All right. Instead of apologizing, instead of saying, no, I'm not a racist, sexist, insert ist, whatever there, say, policies. This is my policy. What's your policy? What do you want? Right? You want open borders? How is it a good thing? Oh, you're racist if you're against it. Okay, it impacts housing. It impacts this, and the other. Again, what does it matter? I don't care from where the people are coming from.
Good advice. Artyom, we're at the end of the episode. Maybe if you could tell people where they can follow you or learn more about you.
We do have my PPC website. I don't have the link in front of me. I'll probably should have thought about it earlier. I have a Twitter account. It's Artyom PPC handle. At the moment, that's it. I'm building my own website, but it's a little bit work in progress at the moment. Hoping to finish it at some point. So yeah, and I guess I wanted to add, like, as a father specifically, I want this country to be safe. I want this country to be prosperous. I want this country to be, safe for my kid to grow, and I want him to be able to learn things I've learned and be good at not just his character, but at his knowledge. I don't want him to be indoctrinated. And I think that what we're doing, and you especially, by the way, with your podcast here, is very important. And we need to stand up and we need to tell people, don't be afraid of being called names. Those are words. They can't hurt you. If you play with that game, you will lose if you take the offense in those words. just brush them off. Those words will not hurt you. If they see that they can't hurt you with words, you win. And this is important. And this is what I'm going to be teaching my son when he's a little bit older. Those words cannot hurt you. It doesn't matter. When they call you names, that means you're winning, and they're afraid of you.
Well, you sound like you're a great father, and I'm sure you're going to be a really good candidate. You're a very smart person. So
Thank you
thanks.
very much. I'm trying.
Thanks for joining the PPC and fighting the good fight. Artyom, I'm going to hold you over until after the episode, but thank you very much for coming on.
Again, thank you for having me. I hope some people can listen to it and adjust their worldview and not being afraid of going with what's important to them rather than trying to be nice to everyone. If it makes sense, but I'm trying.
No,
Thank you
good
for having
advice.
me.
Take care.
Okay, bye.